of the road and in the bush, and so the tracks of lighter animals like lions and leopards, which have soft pads, become more difficult to see. So tracking is a very patient exercise, especially in the current conditions, and there's no light, well, no obvious light, and tracking also needs that kind of contrast. You need to be able to see the contrast in the soil unless you're an expert. I wouldn't describe myself as an expert tracker just yet. So we're getting into the area where the lions were seen yesterday. It's unlikely that lions would be able to, or not be able to, it's unlikely that lions would stick around in an area like this for the whole night. But if there was a little bit of meat left, so that might be quite interesting just to go and have a look and check what's going on there. And this will have been their last position, somewhere around here, and so a good idea to check that and perhaps follow the tracks from that position. Like I say, a little bit windy, and the animals tend to hide in the thicker bush when it's windy. And the other thing that's been knocking about this area of late is a pack of wild dogs. 3 adults and their 11 puppies, which is pretty amazing. And they have also been spending quite a lot of time on Buffelshoek. And the reason for that, you know, there's a property north of us called Buffelshoek. They've got a lot of dams, and there are positives and negatives to pumping water for animals. But what it means is that in dry times like this, the impala will concentrate around the water, and that's excellent if you happen to be a wild dog, because that's your first port of call for breakfast and supper. Impala are the best meal for you. Lots of them, lots of meat. This time of the year, the lambing season is about a month away, and so the females are heavy. They're probably not quite over as they would at other times of the year, so they're pretty good prey species. Right, my signal is a little bit dodgy. We're going to head into the area where the lions were. Let's go to Smith. He is in the deep south, and he'll tell you exactly what he's going to do. Bye-bye, and see you just now.
Welcome to Safari Live. My name is Brent Smith, and as you can see, we have a nice African elephant bull next to us. I've got Andrew Francis on camera with me, and here we have this beautiful elephant bull. He's an adult, probably late 20s, early 30s, and I wonder if he's following a breeding herd, but it doesn't look like he's in must, and using his incredible height and that dexterous trunk. Let's just move around, see if we can get a side view of him. Looks like a very sedate gentleman. So with this weather we're having at the moment, sometimes it mixes up our comms. But fortunately at the moment everything seems to be working well. Hello, mister. Well, maybe a little bit younger than I initially thought. Maybe close to 25 and 30. Still absolutely massive. Probably weighs around 5 or 6 tons. And you can see he's just feeding off, it looks like a baby buffalo thorn there. Oh no, he's going for the grass beneath. And if we move up towards his tusks, you can see his right hand tusk. is a little bit more worn. Hello, big boy. And elephants, like people, prefer one of their tusks as their predominant one that they use, and in this case his right hand tusk is his working tusk that he'll use to ply bark off trees. I can actually hear the crunching of that little branch. Very cold, windy morning here on Juma Private Game Reserve. Nice little respite from the incredibly hot weather we've been having. There's quite a lot of rain around, but fortunately it is staying at bay at the moment. And there we go, roots and all. I'm try to roll back. No, that's stop. Say when, Andrew? Wait. There you go. Murphy's Law. You can see how he's picking up all the nice little new fresh shoots, going for the plants that have the most nutrients. And there goes a baby buffalo thorn. Yep. I love that big heavy stepped walk. Oh, I smelled something. He was on his way past and he smelled something. No, not yummy enough. Hello, big boy. So you're going to watch elephant behavior carefully. He's just letting us know. But if he comes any closer, I'll probably just tap the side of the vehicle to see him on his way, but no need. So one of the most important things with elephants is not to react quickly and make a lot of noise. You do that if they get too close, you can start shouting at them. But generally, you can avoid that situation beforehand. So if we had to start the vehicle, try reverse out quickly or whatnot, we'll actually cause the elephant to chase us. By just sitting calmly and talking in a nice, calm voice, the Ellie's letting us know he's there, and he moved on without any problem whatsoever. And he really is after all those young buffalo thorns at the moment. So, what a way to start with the largest member of Africa's Big Five. Now, across to James with another member.
Hello everyone, we are sitting here now with beautiful lions. The Tsalala Pride is in the same place as it was yesterday, except they have killed another 2 buffalo. This brings to the total number of buffalo killed in this area to at least 13 in the last 8 days. That is quite astonishing. Not all killed by these lions. Some by the Birmingham boys, some by these lions, some by the Shimungwes. And there seems to be a great pasting taken and received by all of the buffalo, which is very sad. Well, not sad, it's sad for the buffalo. I'm being hailed by Brent Leo Smith. So while you enjoy the sighting, I'm just going to quickly greet him on the radio. Go ahead, Brent. Right on the cut line, just on the Buffalo's Hook side. So, while you are looking at that slightly astonishing sighting, just further forward there, sorry, I'm being called on the radio again, Stations, I am live. Third time I'm calling this in. Tsalala Pride static on Buffalo's Hook cut line. 2 buffalo kills. Sorry everybody, I will get back to you now. Right, okay, here we go. So, the other kill is just sort of behind there, where you can see that car moving. There's another one there. Right, let me just, what I'm going to try and do is move a little bit forward so that you can get a better view at this young male who's eating here. Obviously sneaking in a large Land Rover is not particularly easy. Don't want to do is create any consternation for the lions. There we go. Is that right, Brent? Sorry people, the radio is going absolutely ballistic. I've got that, thanks Tax. There's another one here where I'm sitting, also young male, also eating a young buffalo. So, that buffalo you can see by its horns is probably about, just about a year old, and I think the other one that was killed last night inside, just behind this huge thicket of bushes, is probably about the same age. So not a good evening for the buffalo. And the lions, of course, are having a whale of a time out here. Now, why they are so far out of their territory is very interesting, and it is slightly confusing. The young males here are still part of the pride. They're only probably about, I'd say about 2 years old, maybe a little bit younger even, and so they will by no means be on their way to being independent just yet. You can see they've got their kind of the scraggly teenager manes. It's not the prettiest time of life for a male lion. And then, so quite why they're here and not back south where they come from is difficult to say. And as Paul Rizzer on Twitter has made the comment, they do seem to be taking out the young buffalo. Paul, that's not unusual at all. The buffalo are obviously, the smaller they are or the sicker they are, the more vulnerable they are. And so the little ones are normally going to be the ones that take a pasting before the older big bulls or the adult cows. They will normally, if they can, take the little ones. They separate them out from the herd by stampeding the herd. They'll try and kill a buffalo little one like this quickly before the herd turns and comes back. And if they manage to kill it quickly, they'll normally move off the carcass briefly while the rest of the herd chases the lions off, and they avoid them, and then they'll come back and start to feed like they're doing now. And that female there is digging. You can see she seems to be digging in the ground, and often what they do is they bury the innards, and apparently what that does is to stop attracting hyenas. But I have to tell you, the smell of the innards, I can hear some hyenas actually. The smell of the innards is nothing like the smell of what Brian so aptly described as an oil slick on the road. And that, of course, is the rather vile sludge that is the lion dung post a large buffalo meal. I must tell you that it has filled the atmosphere here with a green and very noxious cloud. Comments from John and Margaret about the ability of these lions to kill buffalo. John says this is the Bermuda Triangle for buffalo. Absolutely. And Margaret, you say that they're on a roll. They certainly are on a roll. I don't know what it is probably the fact that the water now is so concentrated. So the buffalo are very predictable in their movements. They're coming towards the water holes like the dam just behind us. And the lions are just camping out around the water, and as soon as a buffalo comes anywhere near, they take it down. Now, they are so full. They've had now 4 buffalo basically in 2 days, and they're so full that they're not even bothering to try and finish these 2. They're just kind of having a bite and then going into a sort of meat-induced coma. And that panting has got nothing to do with being tired, it's got nothing to do with heat, it's pretty cold out here right now. It's got everything to do with the fact that they are trying desperately to digest that meat, and they digest very quickly, and they pant like that because the stomach is pushing up against the diaphragm, and that means that the chest cavity can't expand enough for them to, take the maximum amount of air into their lungs as they'd like to. So that makes them pant, and also the more oxygen they can deliver to the stomach lining, the faster that meat can be digested. And then a very good question from Marla Oppenheim. We were talking about the territories of the lions, and Marla, you say, is this pride normally found on Londolozi? It is. It certainly was when I was working at Londolozi, probably the offspring of the ones that I used to see there. They did split apparently, and perhaps I think this is one of the breakaways, or kind of one of the splits of the original Tsalala Pride. And there should be a tailless female. I think that's her, just over there in the middle, just far left-hand side of your screen. Her mother also had no tail, and that's not genetic. They've just purely coincidentally lost it, probably to hyenas, and could well have been. It's entirely possible that they both lost them to hyenas, or perhaps some kind of tick-borne infestation. Ticks will. There are a number of animals around the place that ticks will eat the tails off of if they're not careful. Giraffe I've seen many times, and buffalo also, with their tails missing because they've had such a bad tick infestation that the tail has actually just dropped off. We're going to sneak a little bit forward and get a slightly better view. And you can get a feeling of the atmosphere as you can see the trees now moving around, and you can probably hear the wind blowing through the microphone. It's very kind of eerie, I must say. And every so often a waft coming off the dam assails my nostrils, and well, it's just not very nice. Most of the lions here, and what I'm going to try and do is get a bit of idea of their ages. So if we look at that one that Brian is focusing on now, let's have a look at her nose. It's a good way to age them. You can see that nose is not pink anymore. It may of course be covered in blood, but I'm pretty sure that it's gone fairly dark. So she's not a youngster, she's probably about 6. And then the oldest one, I think, is probably this one facing us, this tailless female. I think she's tailless. Should be her. It's her there, and you can see her nose is completely black. And their noses are pink when they're born, and by the time they're 6 years old, they go that very black color. And so they're not as difficult to age as leopards, for example. And then a lovely question from a very new viewer, which is wonderful. Thank you, Barbara Tifford in New York. Very nice to hear from you. Always good to have new viewers. It's really good to have new viewers all the time. And you want to know if this lion pride isn't perhaps following the herd of buffalo around the place. It's exactly what they're doing, yeah. But they still normally wouldn't come into another lion's or another pride's territory. For them to do that, it is risky. You know, they're highly territorial animals. They have very specific pride territories. There's a little bit of overlap because they're quite big. I mean, the average lion territory in this area is probably about 5,000 hectares, so 12,000 acres or so. So pretty big. And for them to be this far out of their territory, I mean, this is not overlap, this is straight in the middle of another territory. Why they would do that, I'm not sure, because there are buffalo all over the place at the moment. There's certainly buffalo further south, especially concentrated along the Sand River, which is the core of this lion pride's territory. So why they're up here, it's difficult to say, but they're absolutely following buffalo. Lions will follow buffalo a lot, and I mean the best example of that is that beautiful film made by Derek and Beverly Joubert. I think it's one of the enemy ones. They've got a series of 3, and this one's about buffalo and lion. I think it's called Eternal Enemies. No, it's not called that. There are a few different ones anyway. It's made about the buffalo of Duma in the Okavango Delta, and those lions just follow the buffalo all day, every day, and when they get hungry they kill one. It's an amazing thing. And so here they do very, very much similar, especially a largish pride like this, which has many stomachs to feed. So, 2 lovely comments from both John and Marla. Marla, you were at Londolozi last year, and John, you are obviously a regular viewer and you've kept up with all of the developments of the lions and leopards in the area. And they both confirmed that this is the Tsalala Pride and that its core territory is on a property called called Marthley, which is the northern section of the Londolozi Reserve. And they are way out of territory at this stage. Now, I'm going to suggest why I think that is. I think that they are here because the Nkuhuma Pride has stopped marking their territory. I think the Nkuhuma Pride, which has lost 3 lionesses to the Birmingham boys and their invasion from the north, I think they are in such upheaval that they have probably stopped marking their territory, and that has given the impression that this particular area is now devoid of lions. It's a vacuum, and so other lion prides will move into it. I think that's why these guys are here. I think that's why the Shumungwe of 3 lionesses arrived yesterday, and also why the Talamati Pride, which has come out of northern Manileti and possibly also from the eastern Kruger, has come into Buffelshoek yesterday. I think that's got a lot to do with it. Combine that with the fact that some of the only remaining water in the area is in Buffelshoek, and so the buffalo are in there quite a lot of the time, as will a lot of other general game be. I think that gives you the answer for why these lions have come so far north out of their traditional territory. There's the other kill. You can see it being pulled there by that young male. He's going to pack as much meat into his body as he can before he has to move. And yesterday, of course, these lions were fighting with hyenas for most of the day. And Lisa, on Twitter, you say, look how full they are, and surely they would, or would they, just abandon the kills to hyenas if the hyenas came along. Lisa, they wouldn't, that you'd be astonished at how quickly they'd get up and defend their kill against a bunch of hyenas. The hyenas would be here without doubt if that was the case, if they would let go. Look at those funny injuries he's got on his back there. Oh, that's very sweet. It's also profoundly disgusting. I mean, imagine having that's basically like having your child who's got ice cream all over his face after an ice cream coming and rubbing it on you. It's not very pleasant. Brian, we know what he's going to do, don't we? Excuse the rope, everyone. He is just behind us, and I don't want to move because he's pretty close by and I don't want to disturb him. We'll keep an eye on him. I think he's probably about to make a deposit. It seems to be the latrine area that we have parked in, which is unfortunate. And Paul, you want to know where the hyenas are. I don't know. I did hear them calling earlier in the morning. But where they are right now, I really couldn't tell you. I suspect they're probably lurking about here. They would definitely have smelt or heard what went on here. And so they probably are around in the bushes. But, 6 lions against... You need roughly 3 hyenas per lioness if there's going to be any kind of genuine takeover or theft. Well, they did manage to do a pretty good job of getting scraps yesterday, but for them to totally dominate, there needs to be some kind of ratio of about 3 hyenas to 1 lion. I don't know what these 2 are going off to do. They're probably going off to the water to have a drink. She almost looks like she's stalking something, but I mean, what she would be stalking given the amount of meat that they have here to eat. She might just look like she's stalking because she's carrying so much weight in her belly. What I'm going to do is just try and sneak around the corner there and let's just see where they're going. If we do lose signal, I apologize, we have got a little bit of technical trouble today. But while we are sneaking around the corner, here we go, quite a lot of movement. While we're sneaking around the corner there, if you do lose us, don't worry, as soon as we stop moving, the signal seems to come back. So we will be back there shortly if you do lose us to a black screen. This one, of course, is quite badly injured. He's got a nasty gash on his back and just behind his tail. And I think that is from a conflict with the hyena. When animals are attacked, certainly the cats, when they're attacked, they tend to turn or put their backsides on the floor, and so that that's the best way to defend them, and then they've got their claws and their teeth with which to kind of fight off any attack. And what you find is hyenas and dogs and other lions will always try and get around the back and get in and take a bite out of the backside. I think that little male lion has been attacked on the bottom by possibly a hyena. Right, I think they are just going off to have a drink. We are going to go to Tech Loop, everybody. I'm afraid we do seem to... Hello everyone, sorry about that. Technical difficulties well beyond my pay grade and intellectual capacity, but they seem to have been sorted out now. I think simply by a switch off and switch back on. It's astonishing how many times that kind of a fix works. Next to us now coming the 2 adult lionesses of the Tsalala Pride, one of whom has found that the distance to the water, which is all of about 200 meters, is far too exhausting at this stage of the day, and she has flopped down. The one behind her is the tailless lioness, And I parked like this rather hoping that they would come a bit closer. I think they might, but I also think, as Brian said, that the hyenas are probably lurking around in the bush here somewhere, and they're probably a little bit reticent to leave the kill totally unprotected. 3 of them have gone down to the water already, and these 2 are here. There does leave 1 male though, that is still lurking around. There she. Aaron on Twitter, a very nice question. Would lion or leopard ever kill other species? Absolutely, Aaron. The predators are very nasty. They're very nasty to each other. They will happily kill each other and do so on a regular basis. The lions will certainly kill hyenas. The hyenas have to be very careful when they come in. They're not cavalier about attacking lions at all. Lions are much stronger, much bigger. And lions will actually sometimes even eat hyena. Sometimes, most of the time, if they do kill them, they'll leave them alone. Sometimes they eat them. And then if there are enough hyenas, they will absolutely kill a lion. Likewise, hyenas will kill leopards, and lions will also kill leopards. So the predators are not very nice to each other at all. Very nice question from Ofiwa on Twitter. And Ofiwa, you say that the Matimba males attacked the Tsalalas last week at Londolozi. Now, that would also provide a brilliant explanation for why they are up here. Those Matimba males, of course, were the dominant males of this particular area. They've been chased out by the marauding Birmingham 5, and they, of course, with their blood up, they'll be in a state of great tension, will go into a new area, and they will create upheaval with other prides. And so it's kind of a knock-on effect from the Pride takeover, or the coalition takeover that has occurred here at Djuma. So very nice information that. Thank you. You can see Taxon going in to have a look there. We can't go into that reserve, I'm afraid, so we're going to stay right where we are for now. And then the obvious question is that where are these Birmingham males of whom we speak in such awed tones? We don't actually know at the moment. I think they were on Simbambili a few days ago. They managed to take out a few buffalo there. I think at one stage the 5 of them with this pride were sitting on 6 dead buffalo. So I suspect you'll find that they're probably still sitting around Simbambili, which is not too far to the west of us there, just north of Arathusa. And I think they're probably around there. They weren't found yesterday, as far as I am aware. We certainly didn't get any updates that they had been found. So they will be around the area somewhere, and they're certainly not here, and they're certainly not hungry. Between them had been on 10 buffalo kills in the last 8 days. 10 buffalo have died at the claws and teeth and terrifying testosterone-fueled strength of the Birmingham boys. Let's reverse back a little bit. We'll have a look at the young male who's left the carcass. Lioness is obviously not very thirsty, and of course lions don't have to drink. You know, they get a lot of moisture from their kills, and so they don't have to go and drink, but they will drink if they can. And they're not, rather like with the food that they eat, they're not particularly worried about the quality of the water. Far more concerned about just there being water, and a bit like with their kills, they don't really care what the buffaloes taste like or how smelly and disgusting they are. This one's also been left alone. Oh no, there he is. So you can see just in there one male lion eating, or standing guard. He's probably not even eating, standing guard over the buffalo carcass, or the second buffalo carcass. And the other female who didn't go down to drink is now coming through the bush towards where Brian is facing the camera, so she should come into shot at some stage fairly soon. A very interesting question from somebody with a fascinating name, which I'm probably going to mispronounce, and so I'm very sorry if I do. Spelt J-E. I'm going to go with J, perhaps, as opposed to Jeff. I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but you ask a very good question. You say that I've indicated that bloodlines bind prides, and you want to know if males will mate with their sisters and mothers. Absolutely. You know, for lion prides, incest is really not something that seems to bother them a great deal. It's not unusual at all for fathers to mate with their daughters, mothers with their sons, brothers and sisters together. Is not unusual. And they reckon that about 6 generations of inbreeding like that can occur before there's really any serious genetic defect that takes place. So it's not necessarily a bad thing for the lions. It's a little bit difficult from a human point of view to hear, but it doesn't seem to have any real effect on the lions, and doesn't seem to make a big difference to their survival or their ability to resist disease. Of course, the danger with incest is that it creates a situation where the genetic diversity is so little and so poor that it predisposes animals to disease and also to kind of genetic mistakes. So, forms of mental difficulty and physical deformation. Now with lions, that only occurs after 5 or 6 generations of incest or inbreeding. But that is also why the male lions will kill young cubs. So quite apart from it being a vicious and fairly difficult thing to watch, and for those of you who don't know, when a new male coalition comes into an area, they will kill all the cubs under a year old, and sometimes those even younger than that. So, for example, when the Birmingham boys came into this area, they killed 3 cubs from the Styx Pride immediately. And what that does is it prevents a certain amount of the incest act that actually happens. So while you may have a situation where a male lion, the kind of average tenure is about 2 years. So what he'll do is he'll come into an area, he'll mate with the females, they'll produce babies, and those babies will be mature and ready to mate again, or to mate at about 2 years. They'll be sexually mature. Now what that means is that if their father is still in the area, or their uncle, if they're perhaps a coalition of brothers, they will mate then with their father or their uncle and produce cubs, which are then obviously inbred. Now what the infanticide does is, if new males come in, they will normally kill the cubs that are born of incest or inbreeding. And so that infanticide actually plays a hugely important role in maintaining genetic diversity in lions. It's a very strange way for evolution to have kind of acted against inbreeding, but it certainly is a very effective one. Lions, of course, are one of the world's most successful predators until human beings came along. And we have certainly affected their ability to survive profoundly, but mainly through habitat loss. And while we're looking at these beautifully tawny coloured lions, a question from Ashley in North Carolina, and it's a common question, and it's a question we get asked a lot about, with sort of different colours of lions, and whether we get white lions here or albino lions, and have I ever seen them. Now, there's a very famous story called the White Lions of the Timbavati, and it's a true story about a pride of lions that are leucistic. Now what that means is that they're not albino, but they certainly are much paler than your average lion. They are almost white. They're sort of a cream color rather than white, and there were lots of them found up in the Timbavati, which is about say 50 kilometers from where we're sitting now. There is a pride there, I know, still with a white lion in it. In fact, a few white lions. There are some white lions at the Lubombo concession, the Singita Lubombo concession, which is sort of also 50 kilometers north of us, and I'd say another 100 or maybe 70 kilometers to the east, right on the Mozambican border. And there is a pride of lions there with a couple of white lions in it. So they are around. They're not albino though. They are white lions. And I certainly, when I was working in the Timbavati at Ngala, there were one or two prides that had paler lions. I certainly remember one male being very blonde indeed, but certainly not white and certainly not albino. Albino out here, remember, brings with it all sorts of complications. You do get the odd albino animal born, but an albino animal is an animal that has no melanin at all. Now, if you live in Africa and there is no melanin in your skin, the chances of you developing some form of disease from the effects of the ultraviolet radiation from the sun are enormous. So you just don't generally survive in the wild as an albino here. And so very few animals are born albino and survive to leave offspring. White lions, not so. They seem to be very successful hunters. There are a number of people who are completely fascinated by them. They're up, certainly they do research on them up in Hoedspruit. One woman has come up with a various I think theory is quite a compliment to some of her ideas, but she's come up with a number of ideas that links them with the pyramids in Egypt, how she's made those that kind of connection. I'm not entirely sure, but she certainly has a number of adherents and they come from all over the world to see the white lions. I think she's got a few white lions with her up in Hoedspruit. Anyway, doing a huge amount for lion conservation and a huge amount for the awareness of lions, even if you don't perhaps agree that they are direct descendants of the pharaohs and the Sphinx. Nice question. Thank you, Ashley. So all is now pretty much at peace, pretty quiet. There's a bit of a breeze blowing. We thought it was going to rain on us today. It still might a bit later on. But it's quite nice to have a bit of a front coming through after the heat that we've had over the last little while. And these lions are, for some reason, not being assailed by a number of hyena. Here comes one of the males now. Back from his drink. He's just through there. He'll probably may just go to sleep, of course, rather than come and greet his family. He's just through there. But I'm slightly confused as to why there are no hyena here, unless the hyena have eaten so much while over the last few days at these buffalo carcasses that they're just no longer hungry. Let's sneak a little bit forward, see if we can get a decent view there of that lion. I was rather hoping Jigger might just roll forward, but her aging bones. And then, I mean, we've been talking about infanticide, and Ashley on Twitter, you want to know, will female lions not defend their cubs from new males? Actually, they will defend them to a certain extent, but you must remember that the concept of a fight to the death to protect the youngsters is normally not one that actually occurs in the wild, and the reason for that is very good. If a mother dies defending her cubs will almost certainly die anyway, and therefore there's no real point in her sort of defending them with her life. There's no kind of biological reason for her to defend them with her life. And so you'll find that what happens is that she will certainly make some kind of stand, some kind of defense, but if things turn really bad, she will normally abandon the cubs to their fate. Now, interestingly, when the Birmingham boys came into this area, what happened was that they killed a number of lionesses from the Nkuhuma Pride, and we think perhaps the reason for that was that the Nkuhumas, there were two well, they were not, well, sub-adults. I mean, they were just over a year old. Two lionesses there, just over a year old. And possibly the Pride was trying to defend them from the Birmingham boys killing them. They should have been pretty much old enough to escape the attentions of the Birmingham boys, but it's possible that they didn't, and therefore that the lionesses tried to defend them and were killed. I'm not sold on that theory. I think that they were caught out in a scuffle over food that escalated beyond the point that it would have normally, and I think that's why those lionesses were killed. So a very short answer, Ashley, no. They will not defend their cubs to the death. It doesn't make any biological sense. And remember, lions, if you ever want to see the raw, sort of unadulterated, unsympathetic power of nature, well, lion prides are the way to do it. There is no romance. There is no honor, if you like, amongst the lion pride, quite unlike it was portrayed in The Lion King. Lions are not, lions do what lions need to do. From an individual point of view, they don't tend to have a huge amount of pride, sort of, very strong pride bond, but nothing in the way of genuine, what we would consider sort of friendship. Right, we're going to reposition, just see if we can't get a better view of the lions. I think we'll probably spend a bit more time here, and while we're doing that, let's go and see what Brent is discovering. I know he's checking a hyena den. I'm not sure what's going on there. He'll let us know. See you just now.
So, on this cold and windy morning, we've just come from the hyena den and not a hyena in sight. So fingers crossed those hyenas are aware of those new buffalo kills, and maybe we'll see a bit of action later in the drive in that area or on the sunset safari. So we've been meandering around looking for leopard tracks and wild dog tracks. The wild dogs were just to the west of us, sorry, to the north of us yesterday. There's no tracks crossing into us, and we haven't found the leopard track yet. So we're going to make our way towards Impala Plains, see if there's anything on that side. Sorry, just been called on the radio, standing by tax. Copy, thanks very much. So just a quick update from tax about what's happening in the north. He's with James at the Tsalala Pride at the moment, and just confirming that they have killed 2 baby buffalo. I think James already saw that. But the moments are being quite confusing with the amount of lions around, and the Birminghams haven't been into this top area of Djuma for quite a while, so maybe these prides are just hanging out here because males are too busy down to the south and to the east causing trouble. But there's also a pride called the Tsalala Pride that were found on Buffalo's Hook yesterday, who also killed 2 buffalo. But I've never personally seen that pride, and I know the majority of their territory is in the Kruger National Park, where the Nkuhumas have moved towards the last time they were seen. This cold, windy weather, we're just noticing we're not seeing a lot of general game, not a lot of impala, zebra, wildebeest, hunkered down somewhere. Strong winds, cold weather. The ruminants will be ruminating. We're about to cross onto the main access road into Djuma, and still not a sign of tracks anywhere. We're going to head down towards the south. We've been in the east, we've been in the north. Time to check the south. So, all around Africa, the safari vehicles can be quite different. And as you notice as we drive around here in the Sabi Sands, all our vehicles are completely open. And Sid, who's from Chicago, is wondering, why do some of the safari vehicles in Tanzania operate with a closed vehicle, whereas we operate with open vehicles? I said, you can operate with open vehicles in Tanzania in the private concessions. This area where most of the safaris happen in Tanzania are national parks, and by law they need to be enclosed vehicles. But in the private concessions, you do operate in completely open vehicles like this. The same as in Kruger National Park. In Kruger National Park, you have to have a closed vehicle. Even if you have an open game drive vehicle, you have to have a big canvas roof and some very silly canvas doors, but that's the law. But even in the Kruger, there are private concessions inside the Kruger, and there you're allowed to operate in a fully open vehicle. For me, I much prefer the open vehicle. I even don't like canvas roofs. What happens with a canvas roof? It stops you being able to look at birds and all sorts of things as they fly by. And generally in national parks, those laws are in place to keep people safe and animals safe, of course. So when you're in the private concessions and private reserves, you have generally very experienced safari guides to lead you through this African wilderness. But in the national parks, you are able to drive yourself, and obviously you don't want people, not experienced enough running around in an open car. Hope that helps explain that a little bit, Sid. Oh, we have something with a heartbeat. There's some impala. Morning impies. Nice big herd of impala, and you'll see they're all fluffed up at the moment. What they're doing is called philo erection, and what they do is they extend their hair and they trap a little layer of air between their body and their skin, and the body temperature of the impala warms that air up, and it becomes sort of a little insulative blankie for the poor impalas, who are probably a bit chilly this morning. And this is one of a leopard's favorite foods. And on the subject of leopards, we've got a very interesting question from Clay. Clay said he's seen videos of leopards grabbing crocodiles and going into the water. Is this normal, and do we have crocodiles here in the Sabi Sands? Well, Clay, what we've got to remember about a lot of animal behavior is it's area specific opposed to species specific, and the leopard is the ultimate opportunist, and they will definitely take crocodiles. They generally grab the crocodiles when they're out of the water. Okay, we're going to cross quickly to James. Those hyenas who weren't at the den have just arrived.
Hello everybody, look what's coming. The hyena, the second on the predator hierarchy behind the lion, and their dominance is dependent very much on the numbers that they have. Now I'm sure that hyena is smelling what's going on here, possibly hasn't seen the lions yet, but as you left us, one hyena, and I suspect it was this one, started to call, went and it's a very loud sound that kind of echoes through the trees. So here she comes. Let's see what happens. It's going to be interesting. Yep, spotted the lions. Definitely seen the lions. Now, doesn't know what to do. Can smell meat. Definitely smell the lion dung. And we'll have to call for reinforcements if it's ever going to get anything out of this. Very brave are the hyenas. Not as fast as lions. They can run for a long time, and they're very quick on their attack. We'll do is we're going to keep an eye on what the developments here. That hyena, of course, is now going into Biffel's Hook, which is the reserve next to us. We'll see if it doesn't come around the corner and come a bit closer. If more hyenas arrive and there looks like there'll be a conflict, we'll get Brent in here too, so that we don't miss any of the action. He's not far away, and the hyena den, which he went to look at, is really, as the crow flies, probably not much more than 400 meters away. There's the hyena now, moving in very stealthily. Just, here we go, it's wonderful. Look at it coming around the side. The lions there, they don't seem to have any idea yet, although one of them has just lifted its head up, possibly because it sensed the presence of the hyena. There, I think she's looking at the hyena now. It's the experienced tailless lioness. She looks a little bit like a Doberman, that funny knobbly tail. Now, that hyena's not going to come in on his own. He'll be very brave to do that. Not an obvious answer to why lions would seemingly take more than they can eat. And Lois in Buffalo, New York, you want to know, are they doing it just because they hunt on instinct, or are they hungry, or I mean, what are the reasons for why they might kill so many lions? Here we go, spotted Brian. Shall we go back to this? Lois, I will get back to your question. I wonder, here it comes. It hasn't spotted, there's a lion right next to where that hyena is. Look at that. Lois, I'm going to come back to your question. Let's just watch developments here. There's no way that hyena is not aware of the lions. Cue suspense-filled music, which will probably now dissipate as the hyena decides better of challenging 6 lions on its own. Alright, well, while we wait for the development, Lois, lions, remember, can digest food extremely fast. That means that they are hungry quite a lot. It also means that they will eat as often as they can, because they must take every opportunity to eat. They never know when they're going to eat again. So while these lions are in a sort of place of particular abundance at the moment, because the water is so concentrated and the movements of the prey species are so predictable, that is not always the case. So what they will do is eat as much as they can. If they can, they are very opportunistic, like you say. And so if something just happens to step over them, they will normally smash it and then feed on it. And because if they can, I mean, they would more than happily sit in this one area and never move if there was a sufficient supply of meat. So they don't move around because they like to get scenery and exercise. They move around because they want to eat. They need to catch things. So what you'll find is that they will basically kill as often as they can. And if there's a little bit extra, well, then they'll just keep it in a sort of rotting pantry. Leopard do the same thing. Leopard are often known to keep caches of food in trees. So if they kill something and then they go on a territorial patrol, or perhaps they go and have a drink and they find the opportunity to kill again, they will kill again and then stash that new kill in a tree and come back and eat it a bit later. The wind is starting to blow a bit now. I think that hyena has probably thought better coming in here, maybe just investigating, and may go off and call some friends with that whooping sound. Also, because it's a cool day, it's not impossible that there will be some further action as the day progresses. So the hyena called, when it did call, it called from quite a long way away from here. There's no ways that the lions didn't hear it, but it was then being very silent. Once it got anywhere close to here, it became totally silent. So the lions will not be worried about it at all. They would only be worried by, well, at least 7 or 8 hyenas, and even then I don't think they'd worry particularly. So that one hyena calling is not going to affect their kind of general attitude, especially when they're so full. Now this is what we describe in the business, if you like, as a flat cat. And that's because they are totally fast asleep, and lions do flat cat better than any of the others. Leopards tend to be a lot more active all the time. And just to reiterate, the hyena den, which I actually have never seen as active, that's a fish eagle flying over the top corner, or the top of the trees there. I've never seen the current hyena den active, and I think they've actually moved it again. It's not more than 400 meters from here, and that's Georgian, Illinois. You were wondering where it is. It's pretty close by, about 400 meters. But I don't think that it's active anymore. I think they've moved along. John on Twitter, you say it looks like that hyena is scheming. A hyena is always scheming, John. It is the most scheming animal that there is out here next to the human being. Definitely always thinking about where the next meal is. And likewise always probably scheming about its social standing within the clan. We're just going to sneak forward a little bit so that you can see where the buffalo kill is. And Auntie Lynn on Twitter, that will answer your question as to where in relation to the lions the buffalo kill is. There are 2 of them, of course. The first one is over there. There we go. It's being fed upon by a young male. And just to the right of that line, you can see the stomach contents that is being pulled out. There we go. That there is the innards of that young buffalo. His rumen and various other chambers of the stomach will be pulled out and left there. They don't taste very nice, apparently, to lions. And sometimes they will eat them, but only once they've removed the bolus, the grass, the half-digested plant material. And it's quite fascinating to watch a lion feeding the intestines through its teeth and kind of like a tube of toothpaste, getting rid of the bolus from the intestines and then eating them. They're very rich in good fats, the offal, so they will provide very good meal for something at some stage. So that's the one kill, and then the other kill is basically, I mean, those lions are, say, 30 meters from us, and that's about 90 feet or 100 feet, and the other kill is about the same again behind us. So it's all in very close proximity. very chilly wind blowing through now. Very cold front. And I mean very chilly purely from a low-felt South African point of view. I don't mean from a Russian point of view or something like that, or an American one, where it's obviously a lot colder this time of the year. It's quite a nice bird chorus though, not as loud as it would be in the absence of the cold front. Some doves and magpie shrikes you can hear whistling away to the behind of your screen basically. Questions about the cats and their litters and the number of them. And Nick in Long Island, how many litters will a dominant lioness have? Well, Nick, it's an interesting question that doesn't have a very clear answer. First of all, but it opens a number of interesting topics. First of all, it's important to note that there are no dominant lionesses in a pride like this. The older lionesses will certainly lead the hunts, but there's no dominant one like there would be in, say, a hyena clan with a matriarch, or in a wild dog pack where you'd have an alpha male and an alpha female. The same system doesn't really occur in lions. There's no strict hierarchy. It's based purely on how big you are. So the bigger the lion is, the more chance it's going to have of getting the sort of, if you like, lion's share of the meals. But there's no actual dominance hierarchy. So how many cubs a lioness will have in her lifetime will depend quite largely on how successfully she raises them. So if the thing that brings a lioness into estrus is the losing of cubs. So when she comes into her first estrus at about 2.5 to 3 years, she'll be mated with, and she will then produce cubs. Now, if those cubs survive to adulthood, the next time she'll breed again will normally be 2 years after that. So in a lifespan of about 10 years, starting off at 3, we'll call it, let's call it 11 years. So she's got 8 years of breeding. Now, how's my maths there? That's 3 plus 3 minus 11 is 8. Yes, that's correct. So she'll produce roughly 4 litters in her lifetime if they all survive to adulthood. But what normally happens is that 1 or 2 or 3 of those litters will be killed, and as soon as they're killed, she'll come back into estrus again and mate again. So all things being equal, say a lion in captivity would have 4 litters of cubs before she probably got too old to breed, maybe 5. Then in this area where often the cubs are killed, I mean that could be as many as 10 litters, depending on how many of them get killed before they get to independence or breeding age. Good question, thank you very much for that, all the way from Long Island, New York. Lions are now doing what lions do best, which is of course nothing, and very nice to see them active at all during the day. I was just talking about dominant lionesses versus hyenas, and a nice question or comment from Debbie in Ohio, who has mentioned that she's read about research that matriarchal hyenas are blessed of more androgen, which is a kind of, well, it's not kind of, it is a hormone, and I think that it's if I'm not mistaken, it's a precursor to testosterone. And they are born of that, and they have a lot of it in their bodies, and they hand it on to their offspring, and that makes their offspring certainly more dominant. And that's absolutely true, of course, because hyena matriarchs hand on their status to their offspring. And Debbie, you want to know if I'm aware of the kind of study. I'm not sure which study you've looked at, But certainly it's a well-documented fact that hyena females have got huge amounts, especially the matriarchs, have got huge amounts of androgen and testosterone, more so than the males do even. And it is really fascinating because it's the only mammal species that I know of that has that sort of state where the females are so much bigger than the males, completely dominate them, and actually have more of the traditional male hormone in them than the females do, at least than the males do. So thank you for that, Debbie. It is fascinating to think about and watch and look at hyena society, which is kind of not mirrored anywhere else in the animal kingdom. And that's the spotted hyena. The brown hyena and striped hyena don't have the same situation at all. It's only the spotted hyena. Now, the whistling of the magpie shrikes, the whistling of the magpie shrikes. Just behind us. Otherwise, not a huge dawn chorus, and that'll be a function of the fact it's a bit chilly, clouds scudding through the sky, pushed by a southeasterly wind. There was a lot of thunder this morning actually, which was very exciting to hear, but it doesn't appear to have delivered much in the way of rain at this stage. A gale blowing through. One positive of the wind, of course, is that it is dissipating the green cloud of noxious gas coming off the oil slick for the tree that we are parked right next to. I must say I could not really have parked in a worse position as far as the general smell goes. So what I think we'll do is we'll just gently roll back a little bit, have a look at the other carcass of the young buffalo, the hapless young buffalo that met its doom last night, poor fellow. And then I think we'll probably move on and see what else we can have a look at. I'm very happy to stay here if you would like to stay here. So perhaps send through a tweet, #SafariLive, or an email, questions@wildearth.tv. If you want us to stay here, we'll happily do that. Otherwise, perhaps we should go on and find something else. You let us know. My wish, well, to a certain extent, is your command. Sorry, I've got that wrong. Your wish is my command. Oh, and then a question from Arcadia about the difference between a hyena and a jackal. Arcadia, they are completely different animals. A jackal is a very small canid, so a small dog, and they are scavengers, but they do quite a lot of hunting on their own. And a hyena comes from a different family entirely. They come from a family called the Hyenidae, or the hyenas, and they are actually more closely related to cats than they are to dogs. So basically a jackal looks like a little fox, and a hyena, while it does look a little bit dog-like, is in fact not at all dog-like. They are a little bit like a little bit like cats in their physiology, but they actually come from a totally separate family, and they're more than 3 times the size of a jackal. If you can think of a little fox, that's basically what a jackal is. There's the other carcass in there. Let's sneak a little bit further back now. That'll give you an idea there. So a young thing, no, probably even less than a year old, although it does have horns, probably about 6 to 8 months old. Unfortunately, those eyes are very much lifeless at this stage, and they're unlikely to get much better. Right, let's head across to Brent Leo Smith. He has got some lapwings, which are, well, he'll tell you what they are. We'll see you just now.
We are at a fever-pitched territorial battle between some crowned lapwings These two now seem to have won that battle, escorting the pretenders away from their preferred patch of short grass. The pretenders are going to have to do with a slightly less open area. So lapwings like these short grass areas, and they will defend them against other lapwings, and it's an ideal place for them to nest. They're ground nesting birds, and the youngsters and the eggs are incredibly camouflaged. Oh, and there we go. And defending, and there's a little bit of a quick bout of mating there. So that's why they're defending this little open patch. They are definitely planning to breed in this area. And we have found nests in this area before. And in the distance we can hear the losers complaining, tat, 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 tat. Well, isn't that interesting? Bit of a territorial battle. Now, let's see where those losers are. There's the losing pair. Oh, there's three. No, there's another bit of a battle going on here. It's like maybe there's an attempted coup. The male looking to take over the female. Looks to be the female closest to us, and this one male is trying to make sure he is between the female and the other male, but the female seems to be wanting to go to the other male. There's the other male. Oh, sidetracked by something to eat. Oh, no, 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 there we go. Make sure I'm in between the lady and the suitor. Oh, it doesn't look like she's very interested in the male who's... And she seems to be interested in the new male. Oh, there we go. Purposely putting himself between the two and trying to see off the other. And we have the two males. There we go. Oh, get out of here! Oh, he seems to be winning this little battle. I think this is an ongoing battle. Unfortunately, I've got to run behind the vehicle. They are very pretty little birds, and they are fascinating the way they run around. Okay, let's move along. Let's see what else this grey but definitely not boring morning might have in store for us. As we come up to these impala, we have a question pertaining to them from Ashley. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Ashley. Nice to have you with us. And here we go. Here the impala. Most of them bedded down due to this cold and windy weather. Ashley would like to know, what is the difference between an impala, a gazelle, and an antelope? So, well, we have an impala here, and an impala is an antelope. And a gazelle is also an antelope, strangely enough. We only have one gazelle, sort of gazelle, in southern Africa. Gazelles generally occur further to the north and east, the most common gazelles being on the plains of the Serengeti and Masai Mara, the two most common being a Grant's and Thompson's gazelle, and they are just a different form of antelope. An impala is often its own family, and it's very interesting actually that they are been in the exact same shape and form for 1.6 million years. They've remained unchanged. So an incredibly successful design, and they're the only ones in their family, whereas gazelles have quite a few different in their family, and the gazelle we get in southern Africa is a springbok, but it is also an antelope. So that is our gazelle, quite a bit smaller than an impala. And for those of you who watch any rugby, the South African national rugby team is named the Springboks, and they will be competing in the World Cup quarter-final tomorrow against Wales. So there's a springbok. Actually, the big difference between antelope and deer, which is probably one of the more sort of distinct ones, is that antelope have permanent horns, so they're bone encased in keratin, whereas deer have keratin based horns that fall off seasonally. An antelope will have its horns for all its life, whereas deer will grow a new set of horns every season. Hope that helps. Let's continue on. So an antelope we don't see on the live safaris is hartebeest, and Siberia, who's one of our zoomies operating the dam cams, would like to know how rare are hartebeests in this area. Well, very. The only member of the hartebeest family that occurred naturally in the greater Kruger, but generally way up in the north, not in this area, is Sesame. And the other hartebeest we get in southern Africa is called the red hartebeest, which is very much a dry desert species or arid country species. So further to the north and to the south of us, in the Karoo, in the Mopani woodlands of Botswana, and the Kalahari desert. I will try find a nice picture of them for you while we meander on. Quite a lot of the hartebeest species, or specifically the red hartebeest, is very well adapted to very dry areas. So I said Kalahari and arid areas around there. Past them. I will find it for you shortly. Driving and looking for something in the book can be quite difficult, so I'm going to hand on to my capable assistant and cameraman Andrew to find a picture of the hartebeests in the book. You might find it a bit quicker than I would, but there are quite a lot of hartebeest species, and especially if you go further up in Africa. Oh, there we go. Well done, Andrew. And in southern Africa, in the Miombo belt, we also get another hartebeest called the Liechtenstein's hartebeest, but they're very, very rare in this part of the world. Morning, Andrew.
Morning, man.
How are you? No, go for it. No problem.
Thanks so much, man. I want to cover...
Whereabouts was that?
The red dam.
Oh, okay, Mafufunyan block.
Yeah, I know.
I'll call them just now.
Yeah, just taking a standby in case. Thank you.
Cheers, Andrew. Sorry guys, back to that, just having a chat with Andrew. So there we go, that is a Liechtenstein's hartebeest. We're going to look at, this is the red hartebeest. And they're quite nicely off to the side. You can see how big they are in relation to people. So they are quite a big antelope. But if we have a look at their distribution, we are in this moist bushveld down here, right on the boundary. So that's Mozambique there. Maybe I should find a little leaf or stick, it'll be easier to point for you. There we go. So there's the Mozambique border. We are in this moist area down here. Sorry, there we go. We're in this moist area. We're actually about there. And you can see the hartebeest occurring through the dry, arid zones to the southwest and south north of us. There we are. And then the other one, Liechtenstein's hartebeest, that's the paler one, is a much more of a fan of Miombo woodland and very, very rare in South Africa. And there's the sesame hiding somewhere else. Of course, they never like to make it too easy. There we go. Sesame do naturally occur here, but in very low numbers. They also seem to prefer further north, and very, very common in the Okavango Delta. That's blessed by Andrew. That is the sesame. There we go. So I hope that helps, Siberia. So while we continue on our search, we're going to cross back to Commander Bond, and he's got something big, smelly, and very cow-like for you.
Good morning, everyone. Yet again, here we are with a, well, probably a very distant cousin of the two hapless beefaloes that met their end at the claws and teeth of the Tsalala Pride last night. These are two old bulls, no longer sort of in the state to move with the herd. And if you look at that one that we're looking at now, he is first of all smelling us. That's why his nose is lifted to the air, and the smell of our human flesh is causing him a little bit of distress. That's why he's looking up at us quite carefully. But if you look at his horns, that's a very good indication that he is no longer in his prime. You can see that over the years, the boss, which is that helmet-like topping to the horns, has been used for fighting. It's been scratched away on trees, and it's slowly starting to kind of wither away. And he's an old boy, he's past his prime, he probably won't mate again, and so he hangs around in a bachelor group with that other fellow just behind him. Much easier, of course, for the lions to kill small calves, but bulls do fall prey to lions quite a lot. And a comment from an undisclosed location about the straightness of this buffalo's teeth. Looks like it's had good orthodontic work. They do tend to have very straight teeth, you know. Unlike some of the elephants around here, which could have done with some orthodontics as youngsters. But certainly they do have very straight teeth. I'm not sure why they should have straighter teeth than any other animal out here. But they do have very straight teeth. That's a good point. You've got 4 incisors on the top, then 2 canines, a couple of premolars, and then I think you've got 2 or 3 molars, depending on how many teeth the dentists have ripped out of your head during the course of your life. I have had more than my fair share of that happen to me, so I have had a bit of a shudder on explaining that to you. Now, with a buffalo, those canines, as far as I'm aware, are replaced by an extra set of incisors, and that's very important. The incisors are used for cropping grass, for biting it out of the ground. There's no use in an animal like a buffalo, which is purely a herbivore. It doesn't eat any kind of meat. There's no point in them having canines. Canines just sometimes difficult to understand. If you think of a lion, those 2 very sharp teeth, or a dog, if you've got a domestic dog or domestic cat, then you can prise open their lips. The best way to understand what a canine is to look at the very sharp teeth. In humans, that's the canine there, and those are the 4 incisors there. In my case, they are straight now, They certainly were not straight when I was a youngster. I spent many nights looked like I had a cage on my head, sleeping, with many railway tracks across my teeth. A very unattractive time of my life. Very glad it's over, to be honest. And in a buffalo, these canines, of course, are replaced by extra incisors. They've also got lots of molars for crushing, and they're using those molars right now, grinding away at that bolus, which is the regurgitated grazing that they have in their mouths now. And as I always say, they are re-eating their breakfast, a practice I am most pleased not to have to engage in. Thank you, John, for your warning to these buffalo that they shouldn't go into the buffalo triangle, where buffalo seem to be dying at an alarming rate just near the Buffelshoek Dam. I think these old fellows are probably safe now. Those lions would struggle to take down these bulls after their meal. And Ashley, you want to know if they're related to yaks. They will be related. I'm just not sure how closely. As far as I understand it, a yak is a North Asian species of bovid. Whether it's a bovid or some other kind of herbivore, I'm not sure. So they are related in so much as they have cloven hooves, just like these do, but I don't know how close that relationship is. I suspect not very close. My little book might actually tell me. Hang on one second, I'll have a quick look for you, Ashley. Their closest relatives out here, of course, would be probably domestic cattle. I'm really not sure about the relative, the relationship with yaks. No, this book doesn't have make mention of yak at all. I think that's because it's just for Southern African mammals. And our new viewer, Aaron, thank you for your contribution, thank you for your question. It's a good one. Do we not get wildebeest here? Of course, most of the iconic pictures of Africa or films of Africa, so many of them made in the Serengeti or the Mara, where millions of wildebeest are streaming across the plains in the golden light of the setting sun, and through those wonderful open areas where they graze and follow the water that falls out of the sky, and those magnificent storms that they have up there. Aaron, we do get wildebeest here, but not in the same numbers that they get them in the Serengeti and in the Mara. So we get small herds, about sort of 10 or 15, and you'll probably find if you drive around quarantine clearings, which is not too far from here, it's around about where the final control area is, near where we live. Wildebeest tend to come out and live around there, especially on days like this. They prefer open areas, Aaron. They don't like this kind of woodland that we have as our dominant habitat here. They prefer open areas because they like to be able to see their predators. The whole Sabi Sands actually at one stage had fewer than 100 wildebeest in it. They're more than that now, but they certainly don't occur in the great profusion that they do in East Africa. Good question. Thanks, Aaron. Interesting one from Junebug in Dallas, Texas. We never see buffalo mating, you say. Why is that? Well, Junebug, they're just very private, and they tend to go and find themselves a secluded spot. No, Junebug, the reason we don't see a huge amount of mating, I think, is because it happens largely in the night, and secondly, we don't see breeding herds greatly here. We see a lot of buffalo bulls and obviously carcasses, and the bulls, these ones of course are not moving with the herds anymore. If you spend extended periods with herds of buffalo, mostly happen at night. I haven't seen it very often, but I have seen it once or twice. Good question. Thank you, Junebug. Right, I think these buffalo bulls have probably provided us with all the entertainment that they're going to. safe to say that, of course, they do look at you, and I say this a few times, I have said this a few times, they do look at you as though you owe them money, and certainly that fellow there is doing precisely that. So we'll roll slowly down the road here, and see what else we can see. I must say it's got pretty cold. I now have a blankie over my legs. And just as I was talking about the cooler weather, Maggie in Vancouver has asked, with the warmer weather, well, yes, it is warmer normally, will some of the animals get bitten by snakes? Maggie, it's not common. Unless a snake wants to eat you, he will normally not bite you. And I mean, so something like a buffalo is highly unlikely to be bitten by a snake unless it really steps on it by mistake. Snakes will move away from us, they'll move away from big animals that they don't want to eat. So it's not common, it really isn't. It does happen from time to time, and sometimes you'll find a dead animal, sometimes, and it's very clear that it's just, or it looks like it's died of some kind of poisoning. And so yes, it does happen, but it's really not common, Maggie. There are lots of snakes out here, certainly many more than you'd expect there to be, but we don't see them very often, and that's because they just avoid us so carefully. You may lose signal here, we are going through a bit of a dip, but I'll see you the other side. I'm going to hold off talking till we're through. And then lots of medicinal plants out here, and the traditions out here are normally from the Shangaan or Tsonga people, and they have many traditional uses for some of the plants out here. And Angie in Ohio, you're asking about whether we get something called a spider wart out here, which is used to cure spider bites. We don't, as far as I'm aware. As far as I'm aware, that plant doesn't occur here. I'd be very interested to know where it does occur. Is it a North American species, perhaps? Or maybe it might be an African species that I don't know about, but I don't think it occurs here as far as I know. Very nice question. Lots of medicinal uses of various plants out here that we find. How many of them are actually useful or not, I don't know. Just trying to think of a few that I may have used. Certainly Brent's favorite one is the one Lippia javanica, which is the I forget the common name now, but it's a very kind of aromatic plant that lives around, it's called a bushman's tea. It lives around the drainage line areas or riverbeds, and if he has a cold or something like that, he will pick it and steam himself with it, and it seems to be pretty effective in terms of clearing out the sinuses. Very lovely thought. Brent Leo Smith's sinuses as we drive through the bush. Now, quite an interesting thing there. Brian, should we try and get that battalure? Or is he flying away now? No, he's flying away. Sorry, there was a raptor, a battalure, flying there, and I just wanted to show you how difficult it is for them to fly in the wind. They really do struggle. All the raptors will struggle to fly in the wind because, well, it's windy and gusty. And Penny, while we're driving along looking at not much at all, you obviously saw me plant that leopard orchid the other day in a tree at the Djuma Dam. Now, everybody, if you perhaps weren't watching, I climbed a tree and I got hold of a pod from a leopard orchid, which is one of the only orchids that we get out here. In fact, I think it is the only orchid we get here. And I planted it in a hole in one of the trees, hoping that it would grow and by Christmas deliver us some beautiful yellow and brown flowers that give it its name, the leopard orchid. Penny, I checked it about 4 or 5 days ago, and there doesn't seem to be a great deal of growth, to be honest, so I'm a little worried that nothing's going to happen. I'm going to leave it there for another month or so, and see if it doesn't grow, and if it doesn't, then I will probably try and find another pod and maybe do a bit more research on how to propagate them. We're heading now towards Buffelshoek Dam, and we'll see what's come out in the water there. But what I do want to show you is how the water has reduced and how little there is there. And I think if we don't get some proper rain fairly soon, the only water left on Djuma that will be available to the animals will be those small pumped pans just around Gallego and around Buyatela. Those are the two camps at Djuma where guests come and stay, and the two little ponds that are pumped. Right, we are not far away now. There really is a kind of chilly breeze blowing out of the southeast. Frontal weather. And there was some storms predicted, but you know, normally with wind like this, very consistent coming out of the southeast, we get a bit spattered with rain. We don't get huge storms normally. I may be wrong though. It certainly won't be the first time. I was pulling into Buffelshoek Dam yesterday with Brian, and we were both saying how we've both seen leopard there, and no matter how many times you don't see them in the same place twice, you always look for them in the same place twice. And so I've seen a leopard at the far end of this dam, and every time I come past I look to see if he isn't perhaps there again. He never has been. Seem to be a huge amount going on at the dam right now. We'll just drive up onto the wall and have a look. There are there are two Egyptian geese running now down towards the water. A bit of safety. The male on the left, and that's the female in the picture now. Stop up here and we'll have a listen and a look and see what's going on. Now, what you should know is that inlet there, I mean the drainage line that basically feeds this dam, that is reducing almost on a daily rate towards the middle of the water. And while it does look like there's quite a lot of water still here, it's definitely getting shallower and shallower daily. I think if we don't get proper rain in the next month, this will probably dry out, especially if the heat maintains. Ooh, very nice. Right, we have had an update that there is elephant and giraffe at the Djuma Dam. We're quite a long way from there, but I tell you what, we'll try and go and have a look there. Thank you for that update, Ashley. We'll head towards there, well, relatively quickly. We don't want to speed too much. I know Brent Leo Smith is attempting to find you something very exciting, and so while he's doing that, we'll head towards the Djuma Dam and see what we can, if we can pick up those giraffe and elephant. Those are two Egyptian geese, and rather rudely you can tell the male from the female when they're flying along, because the female is normally shouting at the male. He's flying in front and she's behind him going quack, 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 quack. And you know, the less reverent of my friends tell me that that's what it's like in their marriages, but I don't believe that, of course. Alright, we're going to send you across to Brent. We'll head across to the Djuma Dam and see what's there, and Brenty will tell you exactly what he's going to find. I'm a little bit jealous, to be honest. See you just now.
we've moved off into the west. We're on Arathusa Private Game Reserve now, the second half of our traverse, and there's something afoot, there's something brewing, and I'm not going to let you know what it is just yet. We're going to try to see if we can find it. So we're checking very carefully around here, hoping we are in for a bit of luck. This cool weather does mean certain animals will move around a bit more than they normally do, and it means others won't. So it's one of those payoffs. And as you can see, the weather has not improved much. If anything, it's actually got colder, and I've even resorted to having a blankie around my legs. I'm not a big fan of the cold. I think probably the coldest I've ever been in my life was in Chicago. Terribly cold place that, during February. I'm just going to have a quick look at the Arathusa waterhole, see if anything's about down there. Maybe some hippopotami, and check up with the goslings. There's a family of Egyptian geese that are there, and last time I think it was 11 babies. Oh no, sorry, 7 babies. So we'll see if they've managed to keep those 7 together, or if any predator. Oh, what timing! Elephants on their way to drink. Lots and lots of elephants. Okay. Oh, looks like we're going to be there at the right time. There's a herd drinking. There's another herd that's just arrived. Shouldn't have to call it. Relax, so I'm going to stop here, but isn't that spectacular? It's okay, Ellies. We're not here to cause trouble. So the wind was very strong, so that we sort of probably didn't hear us coming in. And they are relaxing a little bit, but you can see that they are in heightened awareness, so got to be a little bit careful around these situations. It's okay, Ellies. And see, if we had started to drive away fast or move fast there, it would have been not a good idea. And you can see they have calmed down quite a bit. It could also be, there we go, that's it. This young bull's also causing trouble here, that one on the end, and probably upset the females. But how many, Andrew? How many do you think? 20, 25? Mm-hmm. Lots of babies. Lots and lots of babies here. You can see they've calmed down now. They've got over that initial fright that they got. And it's very important to stay calm in these situations. And you can, without even realizing it, upset an elephant herd very, very easily. So I'm just going to keep quiet. I will keep talking in a very calm voice, but I have to concentrate on the elephants at the moment. No. Behave yourself, madam. So you got to worry about the young bulls who might accidentally sort of charge and cause a bit of problems and get the rest of the herd riled up again. But you can see now they've moved off, they're much calmer. And I just tapped the side of the vehicle there and kept that voice, and just changed my voice slightly to let them know that we're not a threat and we're not a problem. This is an incredibly large female we have right here. That's an elephant calf screaming at another. Stop it. Stop it. Good girl. So I said, very, very important to be calm in those situations. if you get excited and riled up, it'll get the ellies excited and riled up. Hello, old lady. See, just from her body language, she's a lot more relaxed than the others. You can see she's actually after a little acacia that's sprouting through there. More relaxed than the other females who were closer to us earlier. And therefore, she's just as close as some of the others, but I don't feel the need to talk to her. Or, oh, look at that, he's putting his trunk in her mouth. Or tap the side of the vehicle. And there's the cause of all the problem. There is a young testosterone-filled bull who's probably been causing most of this havoc, and just you can see by his whole general demeanor, lifting his head, being a big deal, probably just late teens, and you'll find that the females probably have been chasing him away, and he's been causing a lot of trouble with the rest of the herd. I'm just going to turn the vehicle around. I'm not going to follow this herd any further, but we'll watch them move away. If we do decide to follow them further, it'll be after watching just a little bit, seeing their behavior. Obviously, yes, you see now already, I think this is the herd that were on their way down to drink, and they didn't get there because of the pandemonium that struck between the two herds. Also, the coming together of two herds can also cause quite a lot of stress. Yes, I know you're thirsty. You can see he's got the water walk on. It's going to head straight down to the water hole now. So what happened is one herd was drinking and the other was on its way, and then that young bull was causing a bit of trouble, and we arrived at the same time, so there was just a little bit of confusion. Let's see, a little bit of calm, and I love it when they do this water walk. Running, you're thirsty? Yes, I know you're thirsty. Off you go. Oh, it's been a long night with no water. Oh, look at the excitement in those ellies as they charge down towards the water. So they're drinking right in front of the Arathusa Safari Lodge, where some of our viewers have actually been and stayed. So, what a wonderful experience. You can have an elephant sighting without leaving the comfort of your bed. So because of that initial little bit of stress that the ellies had, I've stopped quite far away from them. We can still see them really nicely from here, but there's no need to go too close to them. Oh, playing with the water. You guys hear that click? That's just my camera. I'm taking a few snapshots. I'd encourage you guys to take some screenshots, and don't forget to pop them on the WildEarth Facebook page or on Twitter with the hashtag Safari Live. Oh, there's some more ellies arriving to drink. Wonder if they are part of the same breeding herd, or maybe another small breeding herd. And even though it looks really, really green at the moment, it is actually very dry. That little bit of rain's just greened up the bush, but there is little water around, and it's going to be quite interesting to just watch this greeting now. See, there's a little bit of nerves there. So what happens is a lot of these little family groups are breeding herds. Oh, look at this. Charging in. Someone got left behind. Panic. Yes, I found the elephants. I wasn't panicking. I was very calm. I'm very brave. I don't mind being left behind. Young female. So one must remember that every time you see a herd of elephants, you cannot treat every sighting the same. This herd might be completely relaxed in a different situation, but because of the strong wind, the other herd around, that young bull causing trouble, you have to read and watch their behavior and then decide what to do from there. And with elephants, or with most animals, the most important thing is not to panic. Stay calm, assess the situation. You can see now the herd's nice and relaxed, they're all drinking. And it's possible they've moved quite a long distance overnight and really looking forward to their drink. So unfortunately this overcast and cloudy weather is playing a bit of havoc with our radio comms, and I might have to move away from, because we're very low lying here, and I will try get to the questions on the elephant behavior. I just unfortunately am not copying them 100% at the moment. Maybe as I move to a bit of higher ground later I should be able to hear them. There we go. The need for water sated, and off they move. Now quite often after... Oh, she's smelling there. You can see that the whole demeanor of this herd has changed, far more calm now. There are some hippos in the water here. You can just hear them snorting. They'll be trying to keep as much of their body under the water as possible in this cold weather. Sorry guys, so while we move off and try to see what else we can find, we're going to cross across to James and we'll be back a little later. How's it for?
Hello everyone, little elephant here, little bull. He's being very vicious with us and he's came very close to the vehicle. And then he's backed off a bit because we didn't rush away in terror. Oh, you are very strong. Of course, I'm being a little facetious with him. That will change should he decide to actually follow through. But he's probably about a 13-year-old, 13 or 14-year-old bull, and he's decided that he's going to show us who's boss. But now he's embarrassed because we didn't run away in terror. And so now he's going to pretend that all he's actually doing is eating. And just looking for things to eat, and he wasn't actually trying to frighten us at all, and he's smelling us. This is wonderful. So they don't often come that close, you know, when they're doing their little kind of look how big I am skit. They normally stop at about 20 meters or so, and this chap was, well, at one stage was about 3 meters away. There he goes, he's carrying on, trying from a different angle. I'll try and reverse back and see what he does. I don't want to irritate him too much, but come on then. Come on. Well, we're just going to roll slowly forward around the termite mound here. There are a few more elephants here, and while I do that, I'll explain something to Ashley. Ashley, on Twitter, you say just now Brent had to tap the side of the vehicle to make sure an elephant didn't come too close to the vehicle. And you want to know what would happen if that didn't work and if the elephant kept on coming. I think what you'll find is that Brent, who's obviously very experienced out here, he would have been observing very carefully the elephant's behavior, and if she had, I'm assuming it was a cow or a young bull, if she had been seriously upset by his presence, I don't think he would have been there in the first place. Sometimes it's just a little kind of to make the elephant aware that you know, that's enough, they need to stop coming. But if an elephant or any other animal actually shows serious signs of discomfort, we normally just move away. So in that situation there, what you always do is you make sure the car's in first gear, you make sure you have a forward escape route, and that if you have to leave quickly, you can. It's not always possible to do that, but that's the general rule if you're viewing elephants, especially if you don't or you do not experienced at reading their behavior. The best thing is just to make sure that the car is always in first gear, and that if you have to, you can start it quickly and drive off. Driving away is the only surefire way of getting away from an elephant that is bent on a serious attack. The last thing you want to do is antagonize elephants, and that's mainly because once we've spent a huge amount of time in this area building up a repository of trust, if you like, and it's so important that that's maintained through very sensitive practices around them, and making sure that we try and our best to understand what makes them feel threatened and what makes them feel uncomfortable, and then making sure that we don't do those things. You're always going to get the odd elephant who's just irritated for whatever reason it is, just like you get people that are just irritated for the sake of it. And you do need to worry about them. Look at this little fellow coming towards us now, seeking comfort from the older one. Look at that, on the termite mound, right onto the top of the termite mound. Now, I have heard countless people tell me that, no, I was safe, I was standing on top of a termite mound. You're not safe on top of a termite mound. The elephant is an astonishingly agile animal. That is amazing. Little elephant going there. And Liz in Milwaukee, you want to know what the inside of an elephant's trunk looks like. Liz, I can safely say I have no idea, and I'm very happy that I don't, because I've never had the opportunity to stare up an elephant's trunk, and that's because I've never been that close to one, so I couldn't really tell you. What I can tell you though is that there are turbinates like there are in yours. There's a septum, just like in your nose, that kind of splits the two nostrils in half, and the turbinates and the septum vibrating together are what make the elephant the trumpeting sound. They start to resonate, vibrate in time with the air that's coming out of them, and that's what makes the trumpeting sound when they are upset or excited. had a question the other day about whether or not I'd ever experienced an elephant sneeze on me. I thankfully haven't, but I suspect, Liz, it would be a fairly, what should we say, moistening affair. Look at that elephant right on top of a termite mound. And I don't know if you can hear that, everyone. There. Such a lovely call. It's a melancholic call of the black cuckoo. And it says, I'm so sad. I'm so sad. The black cuckoo just returned, and all along these drainage lines and the dry river beds that we have here, the cuckoos are calling. I've heard 3 species so far. We've had the pitme vrouw, or red-chested cuckoo, the black cuckoo now, and then a beautiful little green cuckoo called the classes cuckoo, and it goes wonderful calls that the cuckoos make. Now watch it come down, watch the agility in the seemingly unagile animal. And there's a very interesting one here from X-Ranga in Tasmania. X-Ranga, you want to know if elephants ever, when they run, do they ever have all 4 feet off the ground? Elephants are the one mammals, or the one land mammal, that cannot jump. They can't jump. They do not lift all of their feet off the ground ever. I've seen babies, I've seen really little ones that look like they're almost running, but otherwise what they do is they basically power walk. They walk with a great speed. They don't ever, and for those of you who've never considered what running actually is, it's jumping. You're jumping, basically. You're off the ground all the time, and something like a horse or any of the animals that run will always be, there will be a time when all 4 feet are off the ground. And that doesn't occur at all for elephants. They tend to just walk really fast, and that's why it looks quite ridiculous when they're on the run. It's quite ridiculous unless they're running towards you at great speed, in which case it's just utterly terrifying, which thankfully none of these did. But you did see how amazingly agile that elephant was as it came down the termite mound. You won't ever, people say, no, well, I was on a termite mound. They wouldn't have done anything to me. They couldn't have. Not true. Right, we'll just move slowly along them, heading into some pretty thick bush. Deb, in Ohio, will the termite mound collapse under the mass of an elephant? Deb, no, it wouldn't. I'll tell you why. There's another one coming up the road here now. It wouldn't, because it's not hollow. It might compact a bit, it might sort of crush some of the tunnels that are inside there and compact them, but it certainly wouldn't collapse because it's not hollow. So there's no risk of an elephant kind of falling into it. I suppose if it had been dug out enough times by aardvark and hyena, then I suppose those burrows underneath might cause the top to collapse, but it's so strong, you know. It's made of almost a cement-like substance, so for it to collapse, yeah, I suppose it's possible, but it's very unlikely. Now, where is this chap going to go? Ashley on Twitter, are elephants really scared of mice? Ashley, elephants are not scared of mice. I don't know where that comes from. In fact, somebody explained it to us, and I wish my brain was such that it would remember these stories. It comes from I'm not mistaken, it comes from some story way back, told way back when, or from an expression, and it just became kind of an accepted fact that elephants were afraid of mice. They're not afraid of mice in the slightest. And if whoever you were, kind soul who told me where that expression comes from, if you're perhaps watching again, first of all, I'm very sorry for not remembering, and secondly, perhaps you could tell us again. I'd really like to know why. Look at that. Just doing a bit of clearing up there. Why it is that elephants are said to be afraid of mice. They certainly aren't. This is what this fellow does. Really enjoying some of the new green shoots. Elephants do enjoy grass more than anything else. This will be a young bull on the fringes of the herd. So you were watching Brent with a herd of elephants a little while back, and they were drinking some what can only be described as green, slimy, foul, sludgy water, sort of stuff of Kipling's Great Grey Green Greasy Limpopo. And Josh, you asked a very valid question: why don't animals get sick? Why don't elephants get sick when they drink that stuff? Because if we drank water like that, we'd obviously be ill for days. Josh, it's all got to do with what your stomach is used to and what it can take, and the amount of bacteria that you have in the stomach to break down whatever it is that you've ingested. So, good example, good way to compare it would be if you go to India and you drink water out of a tap there, chances are that if you're from North America or Europe or even South Africa, you will go down with a form of amoebic dysentery that will make you feel very ill for quite a long time and could even kill you. But the Indians in various parts of India are able to drink that water completely, without any effect on them. And that is simply because their stomachs are used to the various bugs and bacteria and bits and pieces that occur in that water. Now, it's the same thing out here. The elephants and the animals out here are used to drinking dirty water, and so it doesn't really affect them to drink dirty water. Certainly elephants will choose to drink clean water if they can, but they can cope with that foul, green, sludgy stuff. And certainly most of the other animals, I've seen lions drinking mud, basically. Mud that is mostly elephant dung and probably quite a lot of hippo urine, but they drink it very happily and they've got no problem with it. So it's just got to do with what your stomach's used to. And if you lived in India, for example, eventually your stomach would get used to the different bacteria and things that are around there. And again, just relating to Brent's sighting of the elephants drinking, I think he's probably on his way to try and find a leopard there. That's why we'll look at these elephants, while we'll give him some time to do that. Carol, you want to know how many gallons an elephant can drink in one sitting? Well, each trunkful holds about 5 litres, which is about 1 gallon, and they can drink up to apparently about 100 litres in a sitting. I've seldom seen them do that, I've read it many times. I've seldom seen them actually do it. They normally take 4 or 5 trunkfuls of water, well, maybe up to 10, and then they move off. I suppose it depends quite largely on the heat and how hot it is, and that trunk, so it'll hold about 1 gallon at a time, 5 litres or so. I'm just actually going to check that, because I think a very big elephant, there we go, a very big elephant will hold 2 gallons, 10 litres, or up to 12 litres, and I think 1 gallon, if I'm not mistaken, is 5 litres, maybe 4.5, 5 litres. So call it 3 gallons for a big elephant, and a sort of medium-sized cow between 1 and 1.5 gallons of water. This is a young bull on the fringes, like I said. He's just lurking around here. He doesn't want to be with the family anymore. The youngsters irritate him, and he's a bit too cool for school. We've seen lots of pregnant elephants around recently. Shannon in Ohio, you want to know if I've ever seen an elephant being born. Shannon, I have not ever seen an elephant being born. It would be wonderful to see an elephant being born. I've seen a very newborn calf, and I've seen the afterbirth from a recent birth. I've never actually seen the birth. And for the elephants, like I said yesterday, it's a tremendously celebratory affair. The herd gathers round and trumpets and makes a big fuss over the cow that's giving birth. And then they all really do make a huge effort to look after the newborn calf. So, while I haven't seen it, it's a wonderful celebratory affair. I'd really like to see it one day. Thank you, Patty in Philadelphia, for your 2 questions. The first, well, Patty, everybody, watched the documentary. I'm just trying to get the name. I think it's Patty. In Philadelphia, Pappy. Sorry, Pappy in Philadelphia watched the documentary on elephants made by the Joubert couple, Beverly and Derek, and she wants to know if Brian Joubert is perhaps related to them. Brian Joubert is the man on the other end of the lens that you're looking at today. Brian, you're not related to the Jouberts, are you?
No, not related.
Not related at all. Joubert is actually quite a common South African name. So Brian is not related to those particular Jouberts. He's obviously a very skilled cameraman in his own right. And those Jouberts, in case you don't know, have made some really spectacular documentaries over the years. They live in Botswana, and they've made lots of great films, mainly for National Geographic. And then Pappy, I think you also wanted to know, I've lost your question, I'm afraid. It will come through. My mind is lost. Ah, yes, salt. You said apparently the documentary said they need salt, and where do they get it from in their diet, especially here in the Sabi Sands? Pappy, elephants get their salt from various sources. Remember, there's salt in just about everything. Salt is just a combination of different elements, normally a metal and probably chlorine. So sodium chloride is the most obvious salt, but there are lots of different kinds of salts that we get out here, and they will occur in various concentrations in the leaves that they eat and in the plants that they eat, but they also occur in sand, in the soil. And you will find that elephants will at times sample soil, probably not so much at this time of the year, but when it's very dry and there's not much to eat, you will find that they'll eat the odd bit of soil, and that's not uncommon. Lots of animals will do that. There's some animals that will use bones. They'll pick up bones and suck on bones, and that gives them various salts. But these, I've never seen an elephant do that. So mainly from the soil, and then from the food that they eat. There's enough salt, and of course the proportion of salt in the plants will depend very largely on the salt content of the soil and the geology. And this area is not that rich in it. Thank you for your questions, Pappy. I'm sure Brian Joubert is quite pleased that you've confused his filmmaking for that of the eminent Derek and Beverly.
Indeed.
Right, this chap's now behind a tree, so I think we'll press on towards the Djuma Dam. We're not too far from there now. Wonderful elephant sighting. I find watching elephants an extremely relaxing affair, unless of course, like I say, they're chasing you, then it's not very relaxing at all. These ones were wonderfully confiding. Lovely question from Sibusiso and Hammanskraal. Sibusiso, you want to know, you've obviously heard me do a number of bird calls. Can you ever fool a bird into believing that it's you? You can sometimes, not often. It's a very good question. With something like a pearl-spotted owl, you can definitely call them in with a whistle. They will fall for it every time. Other birds don't fall for the pearl-spotted owl call that you make, but you can make pearl-spotted owls fall for it, and they will come in and land and investigate what you're looking at. But those other birds, very seldom will they respond. I've whistled at many, many birds and made what I think are pretty accurate representations, and very few will respond. I think they can definitely hear a subtle difference, and I'm sure that you know the frequency that they hear at, and therefore the frequency that they call at is very different. So it probably sounds quite different to them than it does from the sound that it gives to us. Very good question, Super Cecil. And then you want to know, how do I know that the black cuckoo is saying, I'm so sad? I don't. It's just a really nice way, especially if you're learning bird calls and what they sound like. It's always nice to put some sort of human words to them, because it helps just to remember them. It gives you kind of a reminder. So whenever I hear, I think of I'm so sad, because it does sound like a very sort of mournful call. Another example would be something like a Diederik's cuckoo. You remember the Diederik's cuckoo call because it says dee 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 Diederik's, dee 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 Diederik's. It's obviously not really saying that at all, but that's what it sounds like. It's a good way of learning the call if you haven't heard it before. Thank you, Super Sweezo. Some good ones there. Elephants. Lots of general game will be hiding now in the thick bush, trying to get away from the wind, or we're going to head up towards quarantine clearings now once we've checked the Djuma Dam. Some of them will be out in the open, just looking around, seeing if they can see anything. But it is a pretty chilly day. Just listening to the Game Drive radio, seeing if there's an update. What's up, Brian? And then also another very common inquiry about various animals. Christy on Twitter: are elephants the smartest? Excuse me, sitting like this, and my left bottom cheek has gone to sleep, so I'm just trying to relieve it slightly while I sit here. Christy, intelligence is a very difficult thing to define and very difficult to kind of interpret, I think. And I think even with human beings, you know, certainly the traditional method of writing somebody off as an imbecile because they have a low IQ, it's based on a very specific set of criteria that isn't necessarily valid. People are intelligent in different ways. Some are emotionally intelligent. I'm not one. Some have a high IQ or intelligence quotient. There's an interesting little tree there that I was pointing at to Brian. That's not particularly interesting to you. And so, are elephants intelligent? From our point of view, they probably are. You know, they've probably got quite a lot in the way of. Just pulled out a plug. Ooh, some zebra. Stop here. There we go. They're all now completely panicked about absolutely nothing and behaving like idiots. So are elephants intelligent? Christy, I would say that they are. In terms of human intelligence, compared with human intelligence, yes. They're emotionally very bonded to each other? Are they able to, do they have a complex set of communication? Yes, they seem to have a very complex communication. When we go to lions, for example, and they're considered by trainers of animals, so people who train them for films and that sort of thing, they're considered pretty dim-witted. But are they? I mean, they hunt without speaking, without any kind of, highly successfully, cooperatively hunt without making any kind of sound whatsoever. So, I mean, that must indicate some kind of intelligence. So, are elephants clever? From a human perspective, yes, I think they have a similar kind of intelligence as us in that they are able to communicate in a tremendously complicated fashion. And they also have a very high kind of obvious emotional attachment to each other. And for us as human beings, we find that very appealing because we can relate to it. And I think that also makes us think that they are pretty intelligent. We'll just stop here quickly. There's a young zebra looking at us. He's quite interested in us. There we go, he's relaxed with us now. So is a zebra intelligent, for example? Well, does it have a complex set of communication like elephants? No, we don't think that they do. Do they need them? Absolutely not. I mean, they're a very successful species. One zebra. The mane on his front of his head, or has he got an oxpecker attached to his forehead? Or was he just a punk? See, that front zebra's got a very punkish hairdo. Oh no, it's just his mane. That's quite impressive. Quite a nice mohawk there. Surprised not to see he's got an earring. Just the odd tattoo. Beautiful sounds, you can hear the doves. And the wind. And there. That whistling sound is called a grey hornbill. Oh, it's lovely. Beautiful, and they'll be down in this, like I said to you, the animals will come down into these sort of drainage line areas because the bush is a bit thicker, it's a bit more sheltered. And certainly, I mean, we can hear the wind rustling all around us, but we're not, it's much warmer down here than it is on the ridge crests. Beautiful. All right, on we go. Right, we are coming on towards the Juma Dam, where the elephants were seen a while back. I suspect it was probably that same herd of elephants that we were looking at there. And they probably just walked away from the dam. And there were also some giraffe there, which hopefully we'll pick up now. Update came from Ashley. Thank you, Ashley. On Twitter, you say that zebra are only scared of two things, things that don't move and things that move. That's pretty accurate, you know. They're very skittish. So are most of the herbivores out here. Even the elephants, you know, you would imagine them to be certainly far less afraid of things than many other animals, but they still, you know, they react very badly to lions. They will chase lions. They don't like us if we're on foot. They're very nervous of us on foot. And very few elephants out here will have any adverse experience of human beings on foot. And so why they should be nervous of us is quite interesting. Right, exciting news. Brent seems to be on his way to see another kind of a cat, the iconic spotted cat of Africa. Let's head across to him, get an update, and I'll see you later.
So we've been waiting for quite a while. There were a lot of game drive vehicles in this area. I'm not going to tell you just who or what it is yet, although James, I think, gave away a little hint. But so thankfully for the last little bit of drive, we're going to have a hopefully very exciting, if not beautiful, sighting of one of my favorite animals. We're just waiting for Roy to come out of the sighting, and then we're going to be able to get in there. And you can see in the road in front of me, up there, that's how we leave signposts around the bush. If an animal's in the bush, we drop a branch and we'll tell everyone what type of branch we've dropped, so everyone knows where to go look. So Roy's on his way out now, so we'll be moving in there very, very shortly. So exciting stuff. And as I said, it might be a grey morning, but it's never a dreary morning out here in the African wilderness. Morning, morning. Thank you very much. Cheers, everyone. Okay, so what are we going to see? Let's get in there and find out. Watch out there, Andrew. Okay. A couple more branches to duck and dive and avoid. And this is only a 2-vehicle sighting because it's in such a difficult area. So there's only space for 2 cars. Normally, with a sighting like this, we would happily put 3 vehicles in. I'm just going to see where the best spot is now. And one of the really fortunate things about the vehicles we use here is they are very short compared to the normal game drive vehicles. Obviously, we don't have to accommodate for lots of people sitting on the back. So quite often we are able to get into positions that the other vehicles are not. Look what we have here. And it is, I know, quite a few of our viewers' favorite leopard. It is Shadow. And just behind her, it looks like she's got a kill as well, but we'll show you that shortly. So she seems to be on a killing spree at the moment. That's 3 kills in 4 days. And there Andrew is showing you what looks to be the remnants of a duiker carcass at the back there. A very contented female leopard we have here. What a fantastic sunrise safari. Lions, hyenas, elephants, buffalo, and now right at the end, a majestic female leopard. I'm hoping she decides to put that piece of meat in a tree a little bit later. You know, she has lost quite a few kills to hyenas. So this cold, windy, dark weather, it makes very good hunting weather for the cats. So the different prey species don't hear them approaching, and the wind gusts so they can't smell them as well. And lack of moonlight also helps lions and leopards and be able to get closer, because their eyesight is better at night than the prey species. Very, very, very lazy kitty. She's done her hard work for the day already. I'm just going to roll forward slightly. We will get back to her. It looks like it's actually a very small duiker. See in there, Andrew? How's that? That's good. There we go, so we can just show you the kill a little bit better. So it looks like a young duiker. And it looks like she's already eaten half of it. And so she's going to lie here to digest. And I said hopefully she moves it up into a tree to protect that remaining meat from the marauding spotted hyena. Although fortunately for her, I think most of the hyenas in this area are going to be concentrating around those lions and buffalo. It is quite a small kill. So in the morning, and then the fun begins about tracking her and finding her again. Oh, there we go. Eyes open slightly. You can see she's known game drive vehicles since she was a cub, and she's very habituated to them. Oh, Andrew, there's a very strange bug on the dashboard. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but the color is fantastic. Tiny little red and white beetle of sorts. I think you're going to have a look in the insect book, try to figure out what it is. Oh, and off it goes. It seems like the gremlin crept in there for a bit, and we'll try to figure out what that bug is when we get home. But so looking at Shadow now, we can see her belly quite nicely. And we've got a question from Margaret. Is Shadow pregnant? Margaret, it's too early to tell if she is. She was seen mating not that long ago, and it's going to take 3 months, or just over 90 days is a leopard's gestation period. Very short gestation, and we won't be able to tell until it gets much closer to the end of that 3 months. And she might even be seen mating again before the end of that 3 months, even if she is pregnant. So what female leopards can do, they can go into false oestruses, and they will try and mate with every dominant male that they might possibly come across, to ensure all the males think that the males in the area think that they are the fathers. So it's very difficult to tell leopard paternity without DNA tests, and there's a very interesting project.
Hello everybody, just a quick goodbye from me. Thank you so much. We've had some wonderful interactions today, some hugely good questions which have sparked lovely discussion and conversation. Beautiful lions we had up on the Buffelshoek cut line earlier. We'll go back there this afternoon and have a quick look and see if they're still there. Otherwise, some wonderful elephants as well. A quick thank you from Brian. Thank you, Brian, for all of your efforts today, and to everybody in Final Control. A big thank you to them, and let's hand you over once more. That's Brian's thumb, in case you were wondering, not an alien. We're going to head straight across to, oh sorry, Brent has apparently lost his signal. That's a bit distressing. Brent is of course with beautiful Shadow, and I'm very jealous. I haven't seen her for some time. We're still waiting, of course, on news of Shadow's son Sindile, and hoping that he will be returned to us fairly soon. By all accounts, things are looking pretty good for him at the moment, so with any luck he will be clear of any rabies, and he will come back, I think probably within the next 10 days or so, we hope. We will keep you posted. We're not sure. There are various bits and pieces going on Twitter that seem to be wild rumours rather than actual fact. But the Sabi Sands is watching very carefully as to what happens with his development, and he is, if you are interested, he is just further down south at a very famous rehabilitation centre where we're hoping he will be cleared of any kind of illness. Apparently Brent is lost, and so what I'm going to do is sit back down in my seat and actually do some driving around the place, rather than you all having to stare at my face for the next 4 minutes while I try and make up things to tell you, because there's lots actually to tell you if we can find something interesting. So I'm sorry about that. It seems that Brent has lost his signal. There is a very interesting plant just to the left of us here, and what we're going to do is I'll pick you a flower from there, and we'll have a look-see at that flower. Right, and we'll just stop here with the microphone to pick up the dulcet tones of my voice. And I'll go and pick you a quick plant. In fact, I'll have to come back and plug myself in, otherwise I won't know when we're off air. Any word, Brian?
Okay.
Right. It's actually got a very delightful smell. This is called a Chinese lantern because it looks like a Chinese lantern, and it's come from a bush called Dicrostachys cinerea, or the sickle bush, and it doesn't often grow into a magnificent tree like this. It's normally a very scraggly encroacher species that is eaten by elephants, and in the absence of elephants turns into a real nasty kind of impenetrable forest of trees. Very thorny thing. All right, we're okay. We can go back to Brent now and Shadow. Enjoy the last few minutes with them. Thanks very much. We'll see you this afternoon. Bye-bye.
So here we can see the remnants of that duiker that Shadow has managed to kill, probably in the early hours of this morning. And very interesting that she hasn't hoisted it. She definitely seems to hoist less than the other leopards, but hopefully she'll still be here on the sunset safari. But we're chatting about that leopard paternity and how very difficult it is to tell who's the father. And there's always a lot of speculation, judged on looks and whatnot, which are very, very dangerous to go by. So at the moment there's an organization called Panthera who are the leading carnivore conservation world. Doing an ongoing study on leopard paternity in the Sabi Sands. So occasionally on drive you'll notice that James or myself or Jamie or Scott will jump off and start collecting leopard poo into a vial, and that will go off and be genetically tested to try to figure out who's the daddy. So really fascinating stuff that's going to be happening shortly. So thanks very much for joining us on this sunrise safari. It's been wonderful from Andrew and myself. We will see you on the sunset safari and James and interesting stuff. Leopard on a kill, lion on a kill. So it's going to be fantastic, and you better be there with us. And hopefully the weather stays away for the last few seconds of drive. I'm sure you'd much rather look at Shadow.